Hi, welcome to Matt's Movie Reviews. I am your host, Matthew Perkovich. Now today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to play a game of Make Me Choose Between Two. Now I've seen this played all over the internet. Recently I saw one of my favorite channels do a heavy metal version. So he had to choose between two different bands. So he's the followers on his social media threw out suggestions to him. He had to choose between two, give his reasons and move on. And I thought this would be a cool thing to do because I haven't seen a movie version of this yet. So I asked everyone who was following me on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, to make their suggestions. And I gotta say, I got some really cool suggestions thrown back at me, and we're gonna go through them now. And I'm gonna give my reasoning behind every pick that I make. You might agree with me, you might not. Either way, talk about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Now, let's get to it. Okay, first we're going to go to Instagram, and Lee has told me to choose between Donnie Brasco or The Departed. I love both movies. They're both very similar films, crime movies dealing with undercover agents inside of the mafia. Donnie Brasco, I love that film. It's got my favorite actor in it, Al Pacino, one of his best performances. In my opinion, Johnny Depp gives one of his best performances in that movie, and directed by Mike Newell. A lot of great stuff in that movie. But I have to go with The Departed. It's just, to me, one of the best movies Martin Scorsese has ever made. Yes, it's a remake. It's one of those rare remakes, which is actually better than the original. In this case, that will be Infernal Affairs. Scorsese does really great work here. Him and his longtime editor, Thelma Shoemaker, just pieced together this really great kind of cat and mouse thriller. Has a lot of other elements brought into this film which the original didn't have, especially in regards to additional characters, female characters in particular, played by Vera Farmiga. The original Infernal Affairs did not have that, and there was an element that film was lacking that The Departed had that was really, really great. Great performances by Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, who I thought was fantastic, Jack Nicholson, fantastic, Mark Wahlberg, the legendary Martin Sheen, Alec Baldwin. So many great performances in this film, great editing, great direction, great everything. One of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm going to go with The Departed. Now we're going to go over to Facebook, and the first suggestion is by Charmaine. She asked that I choose between Deep Impact or Armageddon. Again, both films are very similar to one another. Both films came out in the same year, which I believe was 1998. I remember very clearly seeing both movies at the cinema, and I actually like both movies too. And they're pretty much dealing with the same subject here, which is a huge asteroid is about to hit Earth. It's going to be a doomsday event, and what impact that has on mankind. Now, the way both films approach it, while both very visual effects heavy, is completely different to one another. Deep Impact almost approaches it as kind of like a drama. It's directed by Mimi Leder. Tia Leone stars in it. Morgan Freeman plays the president. Robert Duvall, one of my favorite actors, is in it as well. And also a very young Elijah Wood is in it as well. He's like pretty much almost like the lead actor in the movie. While I do like Deep Impact, I have to go with Armageddon. That movie was just so much fun. Michael Bay, I'm not the biggest fan of his work. I actually like his earlier stuff, like his pre-Transformers movies more than his post-Transformers work, and Armageddon I think is one of the best films that he's done. It's funny, it's got a great cast. It's a really odd film in that it's a cast filled with, at that time, a lot of independent actors. I mean, people like Ben Affleck and Noel Wilson, Billy Bob Thornton, Liv Tyler, you name it. A lot of these actors at the time were in independent productions. It was like post this movie where they became kind of like movie stars. And Bruce Willis as the lead actor is fantastic as well. I like the humor in it. Sometimes it's really over the top, but it's done in a real fun way. The visual effects are fantastic. Of course, you've got the great soundtrack with it as well, that song by Aerosmith. Their only #1 hit in America, by the way, and the weird thing is they didn't write the song. I think that says a lot about the movie itself. It's a film that not only was very popular at the box office, it had a cultural impact. It had the song, it had the movie, had great lines. A lot of people kind of cited, and when talking about Michael Bay's, what could be Michael Bay's best film. So in my case, Deep Impact or Armageddon, I'm going to go with Armageddon. All right, next. This is an interesting one. Michael has asked me to pick between Collateral and Drive. That's a 2011 Nicholas Refn film. Again, I love both movies. I remember seeing both films at the cinema. Drive in particular, there was so much hype behind that movie. I think that was one of the first films, like, there's really, the marketing was really driven by internet reactions, Twitter in particular. Ryan Gosling was really becoming like a big movie star at that time. Carey Mulligan's also in it. Oscar Isaac's got a great cast. Albert Brooks, almost unrecognizable. Ron Perlman. It's a fantastic movie, but I am going to go with Collateral. Reasons being, Michael Mann is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, and Collateral is one of his best films. Tom Cruise, who I'm also a huge fan of. People who read Matt's movie reviews and have seen my reviews, they know how much of a big fan I am of Tom Cruise, and his role of Vincent, the silver-haired hitman, is just fantastic. One of the best things he's ever done. I really do wish he kind of went back and did more movies like that. Not saying I don't like his action film stuff, but the things that he does with really great directors, with Michael Mann and with who else was there? He's worked with Scorsese. He's worked with Brian De Palma. When he's working with like really great directors, like these kind of auteur directors, he delivers really great work. Oliver Stone is another example of that. And Collateral is one of those films. You know, Michael Mann's movies are his movies. He's definitely the author of his own works. He's created almost his own world. And Collateral, I think, is up there with Heat and Insider, and Thief, with the great work that he's done. Jamie Foxx is in it as well. He's terrific as the co-lead. It's a fantastic movie, and I'm definitely have to go with Collateral in this case. That saying, I do love Drive, but Collateral and anything Michael Mann, bar a couple of films of his, Black Cat and Miami Vice, bar those films, everything he's done is fantastic to me, so I'm going to go with Collateral. Alright, so next, Jamie has put up 3 different suggestions, and I love this. I like it when people really hit me with more than one thing to choose from, because we can really just jump into it. Okay, so we have the first one, Mad Max, or Mad Max Part 2, or as some of my American readers will know as The Road Warrior. Love both movies. Vividly remember, I was born in 81. So I'm of the VHS generation. Vividly remember watching both of these films on scratchy VHS tapes. Most popular recorded off the TV. My older brother would have done that. And while they're similar, they're just so different as well. I mean, Mad Max 2 really took that world building that George Miller was doing with his series and just pushed it to another level. The third Mad Max film, I absolutely do love it, but I'm going to go with the second movie, Mad Max 2. In my opinion, the second movie is the best Mad Max movie. A lot of people say that Fury Road, which came out a few years ago, is the best in the series. I love Fury Road, don't get me wrong. I think it's a tad little overrated. There's a little too much love there. I think people forget just how great the second Mad Max film really is. Mel Gibson does great work in it. George Miller's direction is excellent. The car chase sequences are fantastic. The world building, superb. A lot of the characters in it really out there and memorable. So I'm going to go with Mad Max Part 2, man. One of my favorite action movies of all time. Okay, next we have The Warriors and The Wanderers. Okay, so again, back to the VHS generation time. If you remember watching both of these movies, I've actually seen The Wanderers more than The Warriors. And I can see where there are similarities between them, because it has to do with gangs fighting against other gangs. The Warriors, and what Walter Hill did with that movie was much more kind of far out there. It was really in tune with movies kind of like Escape from New York and such, where they took New York City, filmed it as a crumbling landscape, and it was just survival of the fittest, and just all the great different gangs and such that they had there was fantastic. And The Warriors was much more reality based. And to this day, I always love saying the lines, "Don't fuck with the Baldies," because it's just such a great line. It's got great stuff in that movie. I'm going to go with The Warriors though. I'm more sentimental towards The Wanderers, but The Warriors is the better film. Just what Walter Hill did with that movie, and just the impact it had on pop culture as well. I mean, to this day, people still cite dialogue from that movie. I'm a big NBA fan, and The Warriors, I think, has a big impact on in the NBA, because you have Shaquille O'Neal doing that whole kind of "can you dig it" thing at one of the Lakers championship ceremony press conferences, and the Golden State Warriors, a lot of people saying Warriors come out and play. I mean, it's a film that's really embedded in pop culture and in the mainstream, and that's one of the reasons why I'm choosing The Warriors, but also because it is a better film, although The Wanderers has a very special place in my heart, but I'm going to go with The Warriors. Alright, and the third and final one from Jamie is Friday the 13th and Halloween. Again, two films very similar to one another, classics of the slasher genre, really kind of ushered that genre in. I'm going to go with Halloween though. I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter, one of my favorite directors. The work that he did with that movie, absolutely fantastic. Jamie Lee Curtis, fantastic as well. Really brought forth terror and how to apply terror on screen and kind of like manipulate different things and ushered in new rules and conventions for a horror genre, which at that time was kind of going down a little bit, and the slasher film kind of picked it up and carried it on his back and brought it through another decade. The Halloween is fantastic. Friday the 13th I love as well. I think a lot of people get the two mixed up though, especially the first Friday the 13th and the first Halloween, in that it's a battle between Jason and Mike Myers. And the whole thing that is really a lot of people forget is that Jason, as in Jason Voorhees, the character with the hockey mask and all that doesn't really show up until the third movie, the whole look of it. The first movie, and spoiler alert here for people who haven't seen Friday the 13th, which is hard to imagine because it's been out since 1980, so is that Jason doesn't appear until the final frame as a little boy, and one of the best kind of twist shock endings. The real killer in that movie was Jason's mum. Halloween was all at the Michael Myers show. He was the main monster in it. To this day, I think he's one of the most memorable and effective movie monsters that has been put out there. The last Halloween movie really did great work bringing that character back to life and really keeping that story alive as well. So I'm going to go with Halloween. Okay, next up we're going to go into the world of sci-fi. Mark has asked me to choose between Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Arrival. Love both movies. Arrival is one of my favorite films of the last, say, 10 years. I thought it was fantastic. I'm a big fan of Denis Villeneuve, and I hope I did pronounce that properly. All the stuff, I've not seen a bad film from him yet. I'm really interested to see what he does with Dune as well, by the way. One of my most anticipated releases this year. Love Arrival, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind is just a masterpiece of filmmaking. Steven Spielberg, this was his follow-up to Jaws. You got to think about it. He had Jaws, one of the biggest films of all time at that time, a cultural phenomenon. Really put Steven Spielberg on the map. And the next film that he does is this Alien movie, which isn't. It's less about the extraterrestrial and more about the human condition. I mean, the roles that people like Richard Dreyfuss, who was just fantastic in a movie, the role that he's plays, his character, it's all about almost like an existential kind of a movie as well. And I know Spielberg, he wrote the movie, and at the time he was going through a lot in his personal life, and that really does show up in the movie. But not to take away the fact that it is a great alien movie as well. I mean, you have the great visual effects with all the UFOs being, all different UFOs flying around, and you have like the aliens at the end, and you got the beautiful music by John Williams. I mean, there's so many great things about Close Encounters of the Third Kind I can't really put into words right now. It's a movie that really makes you feel, and is really visually strong as well. So I'm going to go with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think one of the best sci-fi movies of all time. Next, JD has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me to choose from. Excellent. Let's get to it. Okay, first one, Top Gun or Days of Thunder. Both Tony Scott directed movies starring Tom Cruise. I love both movies, by the way. Days of Thunder, fantastic entertainment right there. Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Michael Rooker, Robert Duvall, again, the great Robert Duvall in it as well. Randy Quaid, great soundtrack, great direction, one of the best kind of car racing movies, like set within kind of like a NASCAR style world. Love that film. But I am going to go with Top Gun. That's just it's a great movie, it really is. The film that really projected Tom Cruise into superstardom, introduced us to other people like Val Kilmer and Meg Ryan and Adrian Pasdar and Anthony Edwards. Tony Scott's direction is fantastic. The aerial sequences in it really does stand up to this day. The soundtrack is fantastic. That film, even though it can be campy at times, is really has got the entertainment factor all the way up to 11, and I absolutely love it. So I'm going to go Top Gun. Okay, next we have an animated battle between Ants and A Bug's Life. Now, I'm pretty sure both these films came out in the same year as well. I have seen both of them, although I'm pretty sure I've seen A Bug's Life more. A Bug's Life is kind of like a riff on the whole Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven kind of whole thing there, and it's really good. I think it was the first. I think it was the second Pixar release after Toy Story as well. I'm not sure if it came before or after Toy Story 2, but I was really early in there. So a lot of people tend to forget that movie, but I really enjoyed it. It was really good. Ants I liked as well, and Ants has the bonus edition actually having voice work by the likes of like Woody Allen, and I think Sylvester Stallone does some voice work in there as well. But look, I'm going to go over Bug's Life. I remember watching that a few years back for the first time in a while, and thinking, you know what, this film does hold off. Ants, I don't really feel compelled to watch Ants again, even though I had seen it several years ago, but I'm going to go with A Bug's Life this time. Okay, next up, Point Break or Fast and the Furious. Point Break. There's no need to get into too deep here. One of Catherine Bigelow's best films, Keanu Reeves, really reintroduction as a action hero. Patrick Swayze, one of his best performances. It's got surfing, it's got a great foot chase, it's got copious amounts of violence and nudity, and a great skydiving sequences. I mean, Point Break is one of the greatest action movies to be released in the 90s, if not of all time. It's just a fantastic film. Fast and the Furious, I did not get into Fast and the Furious, like really enjoyed those films until the fifth one. I think by that time it really embraced the kind of like the over-the-top nature, the campy nature of what that franchise can do, and the addition of the Dwayne Johnson as the Hobbs character really kind of took it to another level as well. The first few movies I wasn't really that much into it. I don't know, there's a lot of things in those movies that seem kind of really tacky to me, and I just couldn't really get into it just as much as the later ones. Because, like I said, by that time they really embraced the ridiculous nature of its concept, and he just put pedal to the metal and just took it to places ridiculous but very entertaining. The first few Fast and Furious movies didn't really do that to me, and I'm not really that big of a gearhead as well. I think you need to have some of that aspect to enjoy those movies. But yeah, look, Point Break or Fast and Furious, it's a slam dunk Point Break to me, no doubt about it. Okay, next we have another Mad Max mention. So this time Mad Max or Waterworld. Like both movies, but I'm definitely going to go with Mad Max here. It was, to this day, I think Mad Max, the sequences it has, the car chase sequences, and Mel Gibson's work in it as well as kind of like this silent hero. I think it's just still really strong, still really holds up. Waterworld, I do enjoy. I remember seeing it at the cinemas when it came out. I think it was in 1994, 95 when it was out. And, I'm a fan of Kevin Costner. I know Kevin Reynolds directed the movie, but, reports from production was that he had a falling out with Kevin Costner, and Costner took over directing duties. And look, it's a fun, entertaining movie. I know it's gone down. Its reputation has taken a real big battering since its release, and onwards it's kind of like a box office failure. It really isn't that. It actually did make back its money. It just didn't do so in a big spectacular way. Worldwide gross has really helped with that movie. But look, Mad Max I think is just it's a revolutionary movie. It had a budget of like $200,000 and made multiple millions out of it. I think for a long time, I'm pretty sure it held the record up until the Blair Witch Project as the most profitable independent film at that time. And Waterworld, very much the opposite of that. I mean, it had a huge budget, had huge expectations. It had the biggest movie star in the world, and Kevin Costner starring in it, and he just had won Best Director, Best Picture for Dances with Wolves. I mean, he had everything in the world, and he took advantage of that, and he made a movie that he wanted to make. And good on him. It's a film that he still stands by, and he should, because it is an entertaining movie, complete with Dennis Hopper as a really over-the-top bad guy, and Janine Triplehorn as well in it as his love interest. In the world building in it is fantastic. But yeah, I just think that Mad Max is a better film by leaps and bounds, so I'm going to go with Mad Max. Okay, the last one in JD's suggestions is The Phantom or The Rocketeer. I like both films. I think Rocketeer came out first. It was in '93. Phantom '96, I'm pretty sure. Both dealing with they're both essentially superhero movies, set within the time frame. I think the 40s and 50s was like the period that both movies were kind of based in. Phantom had, you know, it's a movie that a lot of people kind of like have crapped on over the years, but it's really good entertainment. I mean, if you look at it as kind of like a real fun kind of exploitation B-grade movie, you can get a lot out of it. Billy Zane's really good in the title role. Treat Williams plays the bad guy. Pretty sure Catherine Zeta-Jones was in it as well, and Christy Swanson. So there's a lot of good things there, but The Rocketeer to me is the superior movie and my favorite of the two. Joe Johnston, who directed it, he also did the first Captain America film, the first Avenger. He just did great work with that movie. And then you had Billy Campbell in the lead role. To this day, I don't know why he didn't become a bigger star, because I thought it was fantastic in that movie and had all the abilities to be a really good, solid leading man. Didn't really happen, but he's fantastic in this movie. Jennifer Connelly plays the damsel in distress. Timothy Dalton plays the mustached bad guy. So many great things going with it, and above all, it's about a superhero who has a jetpack. He's zooming around fighting Nazis in 1950s America. What more could you not like from it? So I'm going to go with The Rocketeer. Okay, next we're going to go with Jorge. So he's got a whole bunch of suggestions as well, so let's get into that right now. The first one, End of Watch or Training Day. Both very similar movies, crime thrillers set in Los Angeles. You know, I'm not a big Los Angeles crime movie guy. I'd rather New York-based crime movies than Los Angeles ones. I don't know why. Sometimes there are exceptions to the rule. To Live and Die in LA is fantastic. LA Confidential is fantastic. And End of Watch is a fantastic movie. It had Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena as police officers who were kind of patrolling the mean streets of Los Angeles. It was directed by David Ayer. He also wrote the movie, and he also wrote Training Day, which is why there's a direct kind of connection there. And Training Day is it's a great movie. Not one of my favorite kind of like movies set in that time. Anton Fuqua is one of those directors that he can provide solid work, but I think a lot of the time there's a little bit of style over substance there. End of Watch, I think, had much more of an emotional impact on me when I was watching it. The way that Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena, and Michael Pena I think is one of the best character actors working out there right now, the chemistry between them as partners was really strong. So when that ending hits, it had such a big impact. I remember at a screening and I was tearing up, and a lot of people in there was kind of tearing up at it. Training Day had that great kind of big monstrous Denzel Washington performance that won him his first leading actor Oscar, and Ethan Hawke is great in it as well. But I don't know, just there's something about it. It felt at times too much like a hip hop kind of video. There's a bit of that vibe with that movie. It just felt a tad too much sometimes what's going on there, especially in regards to Denzel Washington's performance. I'm a big fan of Denzel Washington. He should have won for Malcolm X back in '92. That to me still stands as his best performance. What he was doing in Training Day was just a little too much there, and I think it did have an effect on my approach to that movie as a whole. So between those two movies, I'm going to go with End of Watch. All right, next up on the list, we've got Platoon or Apocalypse Now. So we've got some Vietnam War-based movies, separated by like 7 years. So Apocalypse Now came out in '79. Platoon came out in 1986. Francis Coppola directed Apocalypse Now. Oliver Stone, Platoon. Both great movies, love them both. But Apocalypse Now to me is just up here, one of my favorite movies of all time. What Francis Ford Coppola did with that movie, all the things he went through to get that movie made, is a thing of legend. Martin Sheen is in, he's one of my favorite actors, fantastic performance. Marlon Brando, bold and overweight but still makes it work. Dennis Hopper rambling his head off but still makes it work. I mean, there's so many elements that conspire against Francis Ford Coppola, but he made a masterpiece out of it. Robert Duvall, of course, is in it with his infamous "Love the Smell of Napalm" in the movie line. Platoon has great performances as well. Tom Berenger and Willem Dafoe in particular, and I love what they did, what Oliver Stone did with that movie. It's a fantastic film, but Apocalypse Now is just like, when it comes to war movies, especially Vietnam War movies, that's just a mecca. You can't go past that, so I'm going with Apocalypse Now. All right, next up we have Dante's Peak or Volcano. Both movies came out, I think it was in 1997, really in that era where disaster movies was such a big thing. It seemed like every year there was 2 or 3 of them. Twister came out in 96. Independence Day was 94, so it was around that time period where like there's like 1, 2 or 3 disaster movies every year, kind of big box office spectacle. We couldn't get enough of it. So to have 2 disaster movies, both based on an erupting volcano in the same year, not much of a surprise. Dante's Peak starred Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. Volcano had Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche, so very similar there as well, that they're co-leads, man and woman and what have you. From the 2, it's been a while since I've seen either of them. I remember enjoying Volcano more. A lot of that had to do with Tommy Lee Jones's just his approach to his craft. He's just a fantastic actor to watch. Even in movies where he's more schlocky than usual, like Natural Born Killers or Batman Forever, there's still something there that he does that's really kind of like really, he has such a magnetic screen presence. And in that movie, he was really good. It's kind of like, I think he was a single father and like a head of the fire department or a fire chief of some sort in Los Angeles. And Anne Heche was playing the scientist, trying to convince him that there's going to be an eruption from the fault lines or what have you. I'm pretty sure that was the plot of it. It has been a while since I saw it, but I do remember liking that film much better. I remember Dante's Peak had that ridiculous scene where they were rowing across a river, and because of the volcano eruption, the river started to heat up and started to boil, and they're rowing while the wooden boat they were in started to break apart. I remember that as well. But yeah, I'm going to go with Volcano in this case. I remember it being a much more enjoyable film, and I can watch Tommy Lee Jones in pretty much anything. Okay, so the last one from Jorge was actually a pick between 3 movies. So he went against the rules there. I don't mind. I love doing this, so let's just get into it. So it's Trolls, Critters, or Ghoulies. Now, all 3 released around the same time. Once again, going back to the times of VHS, I remember vividly, I was the kind of kid, and I think it says much about my personality, that when we used to go to the video store, and hands up out there who remember going to video stores when they were a kid. In this case, I think it was a Video Easy that was near my house. I always went to the horror section. That was the first place. I always went horror, action, number 2. And you see these video covers, and I remember vividly seeing a cover for Ghoulies, for Trolls. Critters, though, has a special place in my heart because that was like one of the first films I saw when I was a kid that dealt with this kind of premise of kind of like a small kind of like alien monstrous kind of creature in vast numbers that are terrorizing the town or what have you. And I remember just having so much fun with that movie. It was kind of like the first kind of movie post Gremlins, because Gremlins really set the tone for a lot of that stuff, and I loved Gremlins. And Critters, I remember always thinking that I knew when I was watching it, even when it came out at such a young age, that it was pretty much a Gremlins knockoff, even though the creatures in Critters were aliens as opposed to some type of mythological kind of little creatures. But I always had great fun with the Critters, with the first Critter movie. I haven't seen the other ones because, you know, there's like 4 or 5 of them. Who's got time for that? But the first Critters movies I remember, it brings back a lot of nostalgia for me. So I'm going to go Critters over both Trolls and Ghoulies. Okay, so that was Make Me Choose Between 2. I had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you very much to everyone who put their picks forward. I want to do this maybe every week, every 2 weeks. Change it up a bit. How about next time we do best actor, we can do best filmmaker, best genre, do best movies again based in a genre. There's so many ways we can go here. So I had fun doing this, and I hope you had fun watching it. Also, make sure you guys that if you can, subscribe to me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also check me out on Patreon. At Patreon, you can ask me to request movies for as low as $1 a month. It's a great bargain. So you've got three different tiers: $1, $3, and $5. For $3, I'll do a movie review for you every month. If you're in that tier, and for $5 I'll do a movie review and a top 10 list on anything you want, on any type of cinematic movie topic. That's part of the deal there with Patreon. So please check it out. Bring forward your requests. I'd love to put something together for you. And of course, also make sure you check out mattsmoviereviews.net to check out all of my reviews and interviews and podcasts and everything as well. Until then, take care.